Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of Hardcore Wrestling Radio's In the Moment. I am your hardcore host, Rickhead, and I am joined by the dark Skulldron Knight. Skully, what's up?
Nothing much, Rick, and pretty much we're ready to go.
You know, now, guys, for all we know, for the several years, TNA has had some serious problems under the wing of Dixie Carter. She's tried and tried to do everything she possibly can to get the TNA work. She's jumped through more TV channels and networks and playing musical chairs, and finally, Dixie Carter is now gone. Anthem Sports is now completely is bought out and owns TNA. Joe,
Hold on. If I had horns, look, there's fireworks going on behind me. I'm throwing a parade. I am celebrating because finally, somebody had the common sense. If you're gonna buy this damn company, yes, get rid of Dixie Carter, and they did. First, they had her as in an advisory position, but she's truly gone. She's gone. That's it. The wrestling world has been spared. It took years, finally, but it happened.
now, even though now Dixie Carter's gone, on the even now, the question is Anthem Sports. They have several networks. They've already been working with Hulu Plus, CBS, and several of their networks. What do you think more we can see from Anthem Sports now controlling Impact?
You know what? If they do it right, and here's the thing I've said for many years, now they got a chance to raise the Titanic, patch up the holes, put it back on course. They're going to have to get star-studded roster. And I don't mean indie guys. They need to go out and hunt down the likes of a Cody Rhodes. They got to keep Cody Rhodes. They got to get Alberto Del Rio. They got to get any former WWE talent they can get, solidify them, and solidify their show, and solidify their roster with the best. Okay, and again, now they also have to get advertising, promotion, marketing. And I said this many times. What is the WWE's biggest thing? That they can take an average wrestler and make him into a household name. They took a guy like John Cena, who was, I forgot what his character name was when he first started. But they took a guy, turned him into a white rapper, and now he's the biggest babyface of all time, biggest merchandise seller. Same thing with Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, all these people. TNA has to learn from those things that WWE does, realize the biggest mistakes that Dixie Carter made to repeat them, and move forward, Rick. That's all they have to do. Market, promote, and get the best damn roster money can buy.
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head where Mr. Nordholm, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, he's been the manager-director for Impact Wrestling over the past couple of weeks while Anthem Sports was working this out. Now, in his place in Anthem Sports, he is in charge of marketing. So right there you know that they are taking steps in the right direction. The only thing that I know of that's going to remain somewhat the same is the Hardys are going to have a little bit more creative control than the other roster. So far, again, this is a very new topic. This is very new breaking news. Each and every day there's coming out with more information about what's going to go on with the roster. Now, you talked about hiring some of the old, getting some of the WWE rosters and solidifying them. What about the roster they have now? Maybe, do you think there's any chance of solidifying some of those names?
Absolutely. Now that the ship is in the right direction with a right leader, let's hope that they do get somebody that can run the company, because it's a division in their network, you can call it. So they have to find somebody that can run that division of TNA. And I think if they pick someone good and a good booking staff, a good creative staff, talent's going to start flocking to them, because what's going to be? Now you're giving an alternative to WWE. Could this be a good thing or bad thing for them? Good thing, because they'll be able to pull talent that leave the WWE. Bad, because WWE now is going to take it up a notch. But I think everybody's already tired of WWE and want an alternative. So it all depends, Rick, how well they can get a staff in. And I heard they're in talks with Jeff Jarrett. Big mistake. They're actually getting Dutch Mantel, which was Zeb Coulter in the WWE. He's a good booker, has been a good booker. They planning to bring him in. In my opinion, they need to get him, Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, Jim Cornette, and Eric Bischoff. Yes, fans, you heard me say Eric Bischoff. Rick, I turn it over to you.
Well, okay, I want to correct. I think I made a small correction. She was a shareholder. She was the chairman, but she has stepped down, and I believe now she is in the
Advisory.
She's in the advisory. Thank you. She's a minority shareholder though, so which means that she has little or no say when it comes to things. As far as Jeff Jarrett going in, and I know you are no fan of Jeff Jarrett. I think if they kept him as a booker, not a booker slash wrestler like they're doing with Triple H, I think he could book so long as they have an open mind and they keep a strong leash on him. Another thing you got to think about now, look at Global Force Wrestling, which never got anywhere, never got out of the gate, but they did have a solid roster. What about bringing some of those guys back in?
You know, here we go. I'm going to say it like this. They need to keep away from Jeff Jarrett completely. They cannot, and I repeat, cannot get this guy in their company because anything that Jeff Jarrett does is for self. It's not for the company. It's not for anything else. It's because he wants to be the head guy. You notice when TNA started, what did he do? Put the belt on himself. That's fine. You want to start it off properly. But what else did he do? He kept putting the belt back on him, kept making himself the showcase and all that. They don't need Jeff Jarrett. They need to start looking at elsewhere. Yes, he was with the company. He did his own little failed, Global Force, but no, they need to now push away from Jeff Jarrett. He never grossed $1 in his life. Never was marketable. His biggest claim to fame was TNA, basically TNA, because that's all he did, and his little stroke and stealing the WCW. So no, get away from Jeff Jarrett. They need to focus on other people. They need to bring in wrestlers who know booking.
All right, and like you said, I think as far as Jim Cornette, don't get me wrong, he's brilliant, but I also think he has too much of sour grapes. Eric Bischoff would be a strong possibility, because again, he has an open mind, and I'm sure that despite his relationship with the WWE, I think he would definitely be a strong asset. Now, let's talk about some of the roster, that are right now. There are the Jeff and Matt Hardy. EC3, despite the name, he has shown a lot. He's really grown over the past couple of years. When I first saw this guy, I'm like, this guy's going to be a joke. But you know what? He is a fan favorite. He is a great wrestler, and he is good on the mic. I have to give the guy credit where credit's due. They have Bobby Lashley. Okay, I hate to say it, but he should be like he needs a spokesperson because he sucks when on the mic. But again, he's one of those big, strong guys that is a draw. You have Drew Galloway, which was also Drew McIntyre over in the WWE. He's actually kind of developed. You get James Storm, but since James Storm went back, he's just been kind of just sitting there he's doing another stable where he's the leader of a stable. It's just not working out for him. It's just not who he is. But again, they're just those off the top of my head. They have this new division, which is kind of like a cheap MMA version of the cult, like the Ultimate. I don't even know the name. It's just that forgettable. I hope they take that and say, yeah, this sucks, chuck it out. The X Division should be their version of the Cruiserweight. They have the women's, and they're keeping the knockouts, and then, of course, the male roster. There are going to be, I think there should be some changes, and I think we're going to see those changes slowly. Is it going to happen in the next couple of weeks? No, I'm guessing up until at least March, we're going to see somewhat the same things until those tapings or those obligations are done.
Absolutely. I think what they're going to do is, if they're smart, okay, if they're smart, they will pretty much stick to a new name. Get a new name. Get Impact. Get away from TNA.
Well, they actually are Impact Wrestling now. It's not really TNA. We know it as TNA, but the name is Impact Wrestling.
Well, then that's what they need to do. They need to go and pretty much stick with that. And really, like I said, Rick, it all it matters is that they can get the company in the right direction with marketing, promoting. I know I repeat that very often, but the thing is, they need to. That's the only thing that makes a company run. It's your wrestlers and how much you can gain attention. The WWE is a perfect example. I mean, with so many DVDs on the rise and fall of this company, the rise and fall of WCW, ECW, AWA, world class. You could sit down and learn a lot from it, and you can learn what works and what different work and doesn't work. And I think no matter what we do, I think it's really how well they can follow through with that.
Well, and here's another thing. Again, you talk about marketing and DVDs. If they really want to get down to it, which they did do, I believe around Anthem Sports was kind of starting to peek their nose in, they did the Best of AJ Styles DVD. And that, I think, would be a good idea, is to see, TNA Originals, Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, Austin Aries. These guys, even though they're over on NXT or WWE, I still think it's hey, you know what? It's still a draw. Let's make some money. They can make a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, they started off at TNA.
Yeah, you know what? And that could be very, itchy because of the fact that it all depends if WWE owns those names. If they decided to buy those names from the current characters.
I don't think that's the case, because I want to cut you off for a minute. I don't believe that, because AJ Styles made his name as AJ Styles. Bobby, again, all these names came in. Now, you know as well as I do, WWE has done that where they brought the original names and then bought the names out. But I think they're at the point where, especially the indie wrestlers, the more popular ones, have smartened up and said, not happening. Go ahead.
In a case, yes, I agree with you. But I think also the situation is, if WWE wants to allow those names to be used in some other company, it's a very funny situation. Even though Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Robert Roode, all started in TNA and came to the WWE, it all depends if WWE is willing to let their stars be profiled in another company, in another company's DVD. That's where legalities get a little different. And you know what? It could be because they got the talent. Let's say AJ Styles, if TNA or Impact says, I'm going to make the best of TNA's AJ Styles, they got to get AJ Styles approval. They got to get WWE's approval because that's a current star.
Let me cut you off right there. Now, I understand the individual. Let's talk about AJ Styles. Now, if you forget, before Sting even signed with WWE, while he was still with TNA, WWE did the Best of WCW, and Sting was on that cover. So, therefore, I agree that you would have to get that individual's personal yes or no. Now, the WWE could say, well, look, you want to stay with us, that's a conflict of interest. They could easily make that play, but ultimately, I think at the end of the day, it becomes that individual's decision.
Absolutely. And again, that's where it boils down to, getting consented. If who knows, AJ Styles could say, sure, make a DVD of me. I want 75% of that DVD. It could be something that WWE says, hey, you know what? Ask for more money and we'll take a cut. And WWE could say, well, hey, that's a current champion. We got to get a cut as well. Remember how they did the thing with years ago when they sent They wanted Ric Flair for the Hall of Fame, so they sent him Christian Cage or Christian, and he was the Intercontinental Champion. I think he had the belt on their TV. You know,
The TNA belt?
no, Christian, when he went to TNA in exchange for Ric Flair for that one time, he had at the time the WWE Intercontinental title.
I honestly don't remember that, to be honest. But,
But yeah, again, Rick, it's a matter of a good roster, and right now, if Anthem Sports is serious, and if they got the money, obviously they do, but if they got the money, they got to do a coup. They got to grab Alberto Del Rio. They got to keep Cody Rhodes. They got to grab, whomever they can get that the WWE lets go. Hell, Ryback. I hate to say that asshole's name, but they can grab him.
And make him a jobber.
Make him a jobber, absolutely. Get another coup would be bringing in Jim Ross as a commentator. That's another thing.
He's actually contracted with New Japan Wrestling. So,
money. Then you know what? They need to bring Tony Schiavone. They need to get Mike Tenay. They need to get a solid commentating group that will captivate. That's why I like SmackDown, because they have that one guy that sounds like an old school
Mauro Ranallo.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he sounds like an old school broadcaster, commentator.
He reminds me almost of Gorilla Monsoon.
Absolutely. They need to get that kind of chemistry. See, this is where Anthem Sports has to sit back before doing anything and really evaluate the company. Roster, marketing, how they're going to do syndications, which obviously they already got a good jump on it. They're talking to viable networks that are really, really big, like CBS. If they can get on CBS, a prime network, which we've been saying for years that TNA needed to do, instead of these little minor stations, if they would have gone on Fox, they would have gone on any of the major networks. Oh, forget it. They're set, because the revenue from those networks, the sponsors, would help. So they have to. It's funny. They have to kind of take the businessman's perspective of how they're going to make money off of this, and then build up everything around it. Build up the roster. I mean, who else is free, Rick? I know, besides Alberto Del Rio.
Alberto Del Rio was in conversations with them, but that was before the holidays. And again, they made it very clear there will be no major roster change until after March, until these tapings are done.
Absolutely.
So now look at Alberto. Now let's talk about something for a second. We've seen so many people leave a wrestling individual when they were a couple. Now Paige, right now, she was seen back from the reports that she was backstage during Raw. And, Alberto Del Rio, I don't know if you knew, recently was arrested.
Yes,
because
I know.
He seems to have a very short fuse. And I hate to say, but that's not something I think, Impact Wrestling would really want. However, Paige, if she said, look, you know what, I want out of my contract, and she went to TNA, that would be a huge coup. Right now, I can't really think of a lot of wrestlers that, are really open at the moment. Magnus, who's over at a Global Force Wrestling, I think he would definitely be be a great asset.
Retaining Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes again, and his wife Eden, or Brandy Rhodes, who is a wrestler. She wanted to wrestle. That was the thing. They did not give her a chance to be a wrestler. They wanted her as a ring announcer because she was eye candy, and very good eye candy at that.
Oh, absolutely. I took a picture with her. Very good eye candy. Rey Mysterio Jr., I know he's on Lucha Underground, but I think he's also on a part-time schedule with them. That's another coup they can get.
Well,
a veteran cruiserweight for their X division will be incredible. Even if he was a consultant, hey man, I want you to do these flips. It will be a coup for them to do that and get like division managers So it's like, okay, guess what? Rey Mysterio Jr. is going to control the cruiserweight division or the X division. Cody Rhodes is going to run the tag team division. Stuff like that to make it interesting, to do their own little competition. Like, well, we got the highest rated segment, something that never been done before.
Yeah. Now, I want to touch on one more subject before we wrap this up. Now, as you know, the WWE is starting their own UK division. Now, what they seem to make very clear is that any wrestler who's not signed or has a legal contract with a company is able to go over there and wrestle. Now, let's be honest. Today's date, as of right now, WWE is the place to go to. So, now, from what I understand, that New Japan's already started to tie up a few of their people. A Ring of Honor just signed a 2-year contract. Got Jay Lethal to sign a 2-year non-argumental contract. So, if TNA is going to start keeping their roster, because WWE will be like, oh, hey, come on over, would you not suspect that they would have to actually give them some kind of a guaranteed contract?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that, these companies are going to have, TNA is going to have to do. WWE is going to give them a guaranteed contract, or even not really. They can give them a guaranteed developmental contract, where it now allows them to work out in the Performance Center, and then work on NXT, and we'll see how well you do and move up to the rosters. That's the best option. Independent wrestler or anybody, especially in England with this new division, is going to do. New Japan is tightening down its guys. I'm happy to hear about this, because this way it keeps a roster solid of a good company. New Japan's been around as long as WWE's been around. They need to come back to the limelight. Ring of Honor, I think they need to get more better talent, and start building up the talent. So, I think they need to solidify more. And if TNA can get guaranteed contracts, much better, because we need to make sure companies can keep their talent roster and make them strong. If they can do this, we'll see the return of territories, and we'll see the return of these big 3 companies.
All right, well, you know what? That's going to wrap it up for this edition of In the Moment. We want to know what your thoughts. What do you think the future holds for TNA? Is this just going to be another chapter of failure where they're eventually going to flip to the WWE? Or could we actually see another companies rise to the challenge and maybe, just maybe, in the future, give WWE a run for the money? I am your hardcore host, Rick Head. Always, it's a pleasure to have Skulldron and I with me. Skully, we got a review page that we both work on. We'll tell everybody about it.
Absolutely. It's called Skulldron's Reviews. We're pretty much what we talk about. Rick, you want to give them the pun, the motto, the words, the
slogan,
mighty word?
Which is, it's yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We do everything from movies, TVs, video games. We talk about politics, anything and everything that has to do with the media, wrestling aside, because we have a wrestling page. This is what we have. I just posted a few on the TV show Sons of Anarchy, Lethal Weapon, the TV series, as well as some mobile game devices. So give that a check out. That's over at YouTube under the group name RK Reviews.
Absolutely. No,
I'm sorry, SK Reviews. Don't mind me, guys. It's SK Reviews.
It's just the shock of knowing TNA's in somebody else's hands. It's keeping us dumbfounded. You know what? And fans, you can follow it. We do have that Facebook group. Now I'm stumbling. Thanks. Now I'm still having the champagne here from celebrating that Dixie's gone, kind of gone, but at least she's not in control of anything. You can also follow us on my page at Skulldron's Review Warriors on Facebook. You can also follow me on Twitter at Skulldron. I always talk about politics. I talk about the gaming, retros, and everything. So if you want to follow me on that, you're all welcome to do so. Rick, you also do a wrestling podcast, and you also have a wrestling group. You want to tell fans about that? Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah, and we're over on the HWR groups. We're in the groups page on Facebook. HWR chat room. Say what you want, how you want to say it about wrestling. There's no holds barred with the exception of a few obvious rules. But other than that, we don't give a fuck what you say or how you say it. And then, of course, subscribe to us over at youtube.com/HWR show. So, for Skully, the Skulldron Knight, I'm your hardcore host, Rick Head, saying we'll see you when we see you.